Hello there, my dear, and welcome back for another fabulous channeled message and reading. If you're new here, I am Dr. Raquel. I am a spiritual guide, an intuitive reader of the records, and a lover of the written word. I have spent a few decades reading it, writing it, being immersed in it, and I use it often to make sense of the world. So, if you're here, it's because you clicked something that said this is for creatives. As you may or may not know, when us channelers decide to record a video, we don't always know what the message is before we arrive there. And so the only thing that I received as I started my session before I clicked record was May is for the creatives. And so they're going to give me a message for the creatives. And they're wanting me to remind you that you may or may not make your living as a creative, but they want to remind you as a human, we are all creative, creating, making things real in this world. But if you're here, it's probably also because you're really interested in creating something that you're going to put out in the world that represents you and your gifts and supports others, maybe, or just supports you in your own darn expression. All right. So, as I usually say before we begin on these messages, take what's yours and relieve yourself of the rest. So, that means these messages are intuitively channeled for those that are part of the Truly Yours collective. So, what that means is the messages that come through aren't just for one person. And so when the message comes through and you're like, that's not for me, then trust that. That's you working on your intuition, be like, that's not about me right now. But this part is what I needed to hear today. So trust that as we move through the message. All right, so here we go. We'll get started. They're showing me like a vision of like they're saying May is for the traversing creative. And I said traveling, and they're like, no, it's traversing. It's like for the creative that because they're showing them like walking and moving and they're interacting with the things in their spaces. And they're saying it's for like the traversing, moving creative that wants to they're saying like make the path ahead of them, but also just be so enamored with whatever is around the path that it's just part of the process of creating for them. And so they're saying this message is for the traversing creative. And they're saying it's just going to be a couple few reminders for you. And they're saying that's what most of these messages are. They're like a reminder and a spark within you, like, damn, I knew that. I forgot it. She reminded me. Yes, yo, right? Um, and they're saying like there are gonna be like three key reminders. The first is the path is the path is the path. So they're saying like the path is not just about you walking the path, but like the path is the path it is because it's strewn with things that grab your attention, that you're meant to engage with, that you're meant to touch. And so they're showing me this beautiful creative walking down this path. And they're actually showing me a path that's sort of like been worn down before. Um, And by that, that means like other people may have traversed it, or they're saying you may have traversed this path before. And on this path, there are so many things vying for your attention. And they want to remind you, go ahead, give it your attention. Don't worry so much about the path because the path is the path is the path. And really, what matters is like what you're doing on the path and how you're making while you're on the path. And they're saying, like, on one side, there might be a really cool tool for you to try out so that you can enjoy your craft in a different way or become a beginner again. Versus on the other side of the path, there are just colors. They're saying there are just creations that remind you of the power of creating and what you do and why you do it and in what way you do it. And then they're saying, like, there's a bunch of stuff on the path too that's like, built for you to interact with it because it's going to help you become who you're supposed to become in order to create the thing that you're on the path to create. So what they're showing me is like this bundle of flowers, and they're like they're actually the color of my shirt, sort of like a violet, purple, blue. And they're saying like that's like those are like the gnarly things that we don't think are the path that help us in our creations, like the difficult things. They're saying like those are the things that also get to be on the path. They're not the obstacle, they are the path. So they said that's the reminders. The path is the path because it is the path and it's strewn with everything you need in order to walk the path. Did I see that bird behind me? That was my bird or a candle? Hmm. Anyway, yeah. And they said that was the point. Sometimes you get distracted on the path because you're just so enamored by this sunflower, by this dandelion. And they're like, that's the freaking point. The point is that you have a capacity to be distracted because it will return you to the path anyway. Because it's just like I looked away and then I came back. I'm like, oh right, I'm doing this. It's not a forever thing. It's a moment, right? That gets to grasp you. They're saying grasp you in its beauty, its depth, and then you keep walking the path. And the second reminder for you is, oh, you are the path. Mm. You are the path, and the creation is the way you get there. Oh. They're saying like the path makes you who you are. So they're saying there's some of you who are like very confused and you're like, am I on the right path? Does this help me with the thing I'm creating? In what way will it help me? All this stuff. And they're like, yeah, but you are the path. Like you become the path as you walk it because all of it is coming into like actualization because you get to walk the path. If you don't walk that path doesn't exist. Right. And so that's what they're saying is like, you are the path because everything within and around you is here to ensure that what you're here to make is going to get made. They're saying if you stopped questioning whether or not the path you're on is the right one, but already you have become the path you're walking, how would you walk that path differently? Mm, sorry, mic drop. Not really mic drop. Really mic drop for my heart. I was like, oh, I needed to hear that. Um, all right. So they're like, believe and remember you are the path. And if you are, then like, where are you making it at all times? That you're always making it as you make your way down it, as you make things, right? You become that path because they're reminding you also like every person's path is unique. And I think sometimes they're like when people sell things out in the world, when we're trying to connect with people, we want to create these points of commonality. And they're like, those exist for sure. But they also want to remind you that it's okay if your path is just different. It gets to be that. And just as they said, like it'll intersect with others' paths and you'll be met there. But it's still your own because you are the path. You're the way through. Mm, tummy drop. All right. Oh, the final message is an image. I'm like, what are you doing? As you might have seen in my head, it's like a swirl and a circle. They're like, it is always iterative, iterative, iterative. Um, and they're like, maybe just tell them what the word means instead of saying iterative. Like it's like it's always it's always returning, developing, moving, right? And so that's why they're saying like they did the circle and the return around the first two messages. That like that's part of the journey is returning to the knowing of like this is your path. You get to make it, even as you may get distracted and you see somebody else on their path. You're like, oh, I think I like that one. I'm gonna go for a ride on that path. And then you're like, then it's iterative, right? Like it returns in a different way and it gets deeper and it changes, right? Because now you're in a different place than when you might have met them on the path. So now you get to like bloop, right? So they're saying it is always in movement, always being made. So what if you knew that, what kind of pressure would you relieve yourself of? And they're saying in the sense of performance, in the sense of perfection, in the sense of purpose. How would you change your relationship to those three things if you knew it was always being made and remade? in like really beautiful ways and difficult ways. They're saying in frustrating ways and also really freaking magical ways because they want to remind you if you did it once, you can do it again. They're saying you need to repeat that for them again. So if you did it before and you did it at one other time, you can do it again. And they're saying that's in regards to creation, that's in regards to the life path you're on, that's in regard, right? Like you can start again, you can choose differently every time. And they're saying they know it's hard for you to believe that. And they're saying that belief doesn't always begin with like changing everything in your life. It just begins with believing and deciding differently in a moment's notice and allowing yourself the permission to decide that. Because then that will give you the perspective to make choices that eventually lead to a different path. But first, you have to believe it. You have to help yourself. They're saying you have to help yourself believe it. Yeah, they're saying you have to help yourself believe it before you make a decision. Because otherwise, you think making the decision will help you believe that. I'm like, if you've just decided, it's already changed. They're saying if you've decided the path, if you are the path, then the path is already changed the moment you decide to change it. And the way that looks like, and they're saying the way that looks like in physical reality might be different than what you know in your heart and in your spiritual life. And that gets to be okay too. Like it gets to be like two separate things for a little while until they come together to match. Because they won't match until you believe it enough anyway. And they're saying that's all. They're saying like May is for the creatives and the messages in May are going to be short. So they're saying mm, they're inviting me to tell you thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the messages in. They're saying like they're very vague and they're open because sometimes that's what we need. Like we just need to be with a message in a very metaphorical way and make it our own. So they weren't like that specific in this message. They were like, no, we're just going to keep it like philosophical and like poetic and let you lean in wherever the heck you lean in to wherever you're meant to for whatever way is going to get you to understand that the path is the path is the path and that you are the path. All right. Let me know what resonates for you in the comments. I would love to witness you, get to know you, and I will see you in the next message.